you just have to be okay with being told no. It's not that you're not good enough or you're not ready for the opportunity. It's just that people don't know about you yet. It just has to be you. Like it can be a song lyric that you like or an idea that you have and you just kind of want to throw it out there.
Welcome back to Life Worth Chasing. I'm your host, Chase Maher, and this show is about helping entrepreneurs build their business around their dream lifestyle. He is an independent electronic music producer and a DJ based in Southern California. In the last 12 months, he's released 8 remixes, has performed in 6 countries and 37 different cities that include Vegas, London, Tokyo, Singapore, and San Francisco. He's also an absolute crazy person that wakes up at 4:30 in the morning to work out and reads more books than college professors. He is Teddy Rose. What's up, brother? Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, Chase? Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
I'm looking forward to having you here for a few reasons. One, in the music world, you got a pretty big name, but in the entrepreneur world, I don't think a whole lot of entrepreneurs really think of being a music producer or a DJ as something that's entrepreneurial. But me knowing you personally and being one of my good buddies, I know how hard you work. I know the dedication you put in. I know the study time you put in. I know the systems you have to have. And it's really no different than running a business. You have people that work for you. You have expectations to live up to. You have income streams to manage. It's a pretty cool form of entrepreneurism, and if that's even a word. And I'm excited to talk about that with you, man. So thanks for coming on the show. And I really want to get started with something that I don't know much about you, some of your earlier years. I don't want to spend too much time on it because I really want to get into what makes you special. But tell me a little bit about, like, before I met you, before college, who was Teddy Rose?
Well, before college, really my life was pretty much all sports. In high school, did student government, was very involved in that. Was always pretty busy, didn't really like, wasting too much time or just sit around the house too much. And really that's pretty evident in my personality right now. I don't like to sit still and never have, always like to be active, out playing sports, hanging out with friends, much like now.
Yeah, man. And did you have like that same insane work ethic then that you did now? Or like, is there something that happened that sort of made that click for you?
To be honest, I think junior year of high school, I just up to that point, I always assumed I'm going to play Major League Baseball or I'm going to go play for this huge college and play D1 baseball. And then, I had the talk with my parents. They're like, yeah, you need to get a lot better grades the next year or two to go to a good school. So at that point, I was like, all right, I need to work really hard at everything. And my grades in high school, junior, senior year, were pretty lights out after that conversation. But overall, I've always been a really hard worker. And I think it originally stemmed from baseball, putting in a lot of extra hours to even be an average pitcher, and getting extra lessons from a coach about form and technique. And I think that early mindset on putting in extra time to get to a point where you can perform has been very valuable now later on in life.
Yeah, man. And I can see that must have had a large impact on you, because what I notice in you now is you are all about the fundamentals. You are all about the hard work and putting in that extra time. And you're really the epitome of the entrepreneur that puts in that extra time when nobody else is around. That's one thing I really admire about you. So tell me this, at what point did you make a decision to do what you're doing now? Like, what was going through your head? What were you doing at the time? And like, how did that manifest to the point where you told yourself, I'm going to travel the world and play music?
Really, there's kind of 2 parts to this. So on the music side, when I released a remix I made of Blink-182, the end of 2016, that was the first time I really felt like my music was really well received and people really liked it. People were sharing it with their friends, and there's a lot of conversation and excitement about it. At that point, I was like, okay, I need to really throw everything at that part of it, making music and getting my remixes out so people know what my music's about. But I would say when I had a few different promoters or nightclubs reaching out to me to, travel to get flown out or go play at their club. And once that frequency picked up to where I was playing, a few different cities over the course of 6 weeks, I was like, all right, this is definitely gaining traction. And then last year, it all just kind of hit, releasing a remix every 6 weeks or even more often than that at one point. And next thing I knew, we did a fall tour and played like 20 different cities just over a few months. So now it's fully up and running and pretty much playing a show in a different city every weekend. I've only had a few weekends off this whole year up to April. And right now it's kind of all about riding the momentum and kind of recognize when that momentum might be depleting and thinking like, okay, we can keep pushing, but it's going to run out. And you kind of step back and think about what we need to do to get to that next step. Because if these certain opportunities aren't actually growing us and it's kind of the same thing that we've been doing, then we need to, step on the brakes a little bit and reassess and figure out what that next step is.
That's interesting, man. It's almost like seasons in a show, where if a show would just keep going and going and going, people would probably get sick of it. But pausing and reflecting and that anticipation from the fans, from your listeners, I'm sure helps quite a bit. So one thing I know about you is you like really light up when you're traveling and when you're playing music. So tell me, like, what is it about music? What is it about performing that really makes you happy and instills that that need and that passion to work so hard?
Really, it's an emotion that I can't find in anything else. It's how I relax. It's the only thing that I've ever come across that is really an emotional release for me. And getting to perform and connect with people in the crowd, making eye contact and see visibly what they're feeling based off of the music that I'm playing is really powerful. I really can't describe it, but it's just something that I love. Like there have been multiple times where all I want to do is work on music and, don't even want to talk to people or whatever, just work on music, like just because I'm having that much fun with it.
Tell me about like the most insane experience that you've had performing. What was the most fun night that you've had in, say, the last 6 months? And what was that like? Where were you and why was it so fun?
It was last month in Sapporo, Japan. It was on a Wednesday night and I really didn't know what to expect. I don't know anyone in Sapporo, Japan. And I walk into this club and the place is pretty packed and everyone there was just super high energy, very electrifying, jumping, like crazy energy the whole night. And to the point to where I was out of breath by the time I was done, just because I felt like I needed to keep up with them and jump as much as they were and, just kind of keep the energy up, interact with them, sing along just like they were. And the production and the size of the club was awesome, but really the people that were in the crowd up front at that show, I have not seen any energy even close to that. Like they were just so in the moment, nothing else was going on in the world, and they were just having the time of their lives. And it made me think of when I was at that point, like just a fan at 18, 19, 20 years old, just going to shows and having the absolute time of my life. And I really saw that in the crowd at that club in Sapporo, at Club Mu is what it's called.
Gotcha. So let's talk about that. You said that it really reminded you of when you were basically on the other side. And I think what a lot of people can take from what your answer is about to be is where they're at right now. They might be the employee, they might be a startup, they might be a successful business owner, but we've all been on either one side of the track or both sides. And so talk about like that reflection and that growth that you've had to go from the 18 or 19-year-old at the club listening to now the well-known producer and DJ that people are paying money to go see. How has your mindset shifted?
Really, I wouldn't I wouldn't say it's changed that much. I know how I felt when I was just going to shows, and I kind of know what people in the crowd want in terms of energy and certain types of songs that you need to play. As a fan, just going to a big show, seeing like Hardwell or Tiesto or Alesso, just going as a fan, I would always have a great time, but I would always kind of think like, man, like what if he kind of went with this type of build or, blended into this type of drop. And now in my position, I'm able to do that and kind of create a whole different vibe and set where people recognize certain parts and they're expecting, a certain type of song next or a certain type of drop, but completely changing things up last second to kind of catch them in the awe or some sort of surprise where it fits that mood, but it's a drop they haven't heard before, or a combination of a new vocal with an old track, or an old vocal with a new track, and just kind of crafting my own unique set that really no one has heard before. Of course, a lot of the individual pieces will be recognizable, and that's kind of part of bringing the crowd together, singing along, but then crafting it your own way that's unique to you as a DJ.
That's really interesting. So, what I take that as, because obviously I'm not a DJ, a producer, a business owner, I take that as like, while you can appreciate and be a fan of somebody else's work or somebody else's business, instead of just fanboying it and constantly praising, you can also look at it in an angle from like, how can you learn from what they're doing? How can you do it better? What is the crowd or what is the market like? What do they appreciate about that person's product? And how can you spin it with your own twist and make something even better and improve upon it? So I definitely think, would you agree you're a pretty analytical person?
Oh, absolutely.
So let's talk about that. How has being like so analytical and like really peeling off the layers of certain things helped you in your career so far?
It's been very helpful from, seeing what's worked in the past and, what doesn't work in terms of how many releases or how many remixes are people or other producers making or releasing. How often are they playing shows? What type of branding works? What type of posts do people react well to? Seeing what works, but then crafting it to making it your own unique style.
One thing that you've done in the past that you've told me that I found really interesting was you studied other DJs or other producers, how many remixes they released in a year, how many shows they played in a year, how many days they spent on tour, and you really studied them through their growth years. And you told me that you were just going to model that. And I think one thing in the entrepreneurial world is don't reinvent the wheel. And when a lot of people try to get super creative, that's when they fall off track. Instead of following a model that's in front of them, and then once they've gotten to the point of getting creative, they can. So, like, how did you come up with that idea? And take me through the process of like studying your peers and studying those that are further along than you, and how you sort of take bits and pieces from them and put it into your own show.
I guess the model was kind of based off of, how many shows I should be playing a year to kind of be on track. That was kind of the main thing, because this day and age in 2018, now 2019, everybody is making good music. Anyone can download software, put hours and hours and a day into it, learning how to make music. A year and a half, 2 years later, they're probably making something decent. So I found the common denominator was people that were getting, those huge festival bookings or big club shows. Sure, they had the great music, but they were playing a ton of shows all over the place. And the reality is there's a lot of people making really good music that aren't playing any shows. So I always kind of found it as a responsibility to create my own opportunities by massive reach out, following up, and getting in the heads of people making decisions for events for different lineups, bookings for clubs, always knowing what Teddy Rose is up to, playing a show here, playing a show in Asia, kind of all over the place and constant to where we have that momentum. If I was just so focused on only working on the music, then you kind of get lost in that momentum and trajectory that people can actually visibly see and kind of follow and track and become an actual fan of that progression.
It's so crazy to hear you say that, because like the paradigm between your world and my world and many other business owners' worlds, while the surface level items might be different, you're making music, you're delivering remixes, you're delivering originals, you're playing at shows. I'm doing real estate investing, selling projects, managing rehabs. Other people are selling courses. It's all the same in the grand scheme of things, because like what you just said, it's all about speed to market. There's so many business owners out there that have a good product, or that know how to sell, or know how to, deliver good creative work. It's a dime a dozen. But what separates the successful people from the not is speed to market. And you've gone from realizing a lot of people have good music, and a lot of people can sit at home and work on music and create something great. But if they don't get it to the marketplace, they're not going to be anything. And if they wait way too long to get it to the marketplace, think of all the other people that are going to surpass them and take their chips and literally jump over them, leapfrog them. So you sort of struck that balance of understanding the music side of things and being a creative, but also very business minded, and knowing that you might not be the best producer in the world, but if you can get your music to the market faster and at a more rapid pace and really 10x your outreach, it doesn't matter who has the best music. It matters who the people have access to and who they can hear. So let's talk about some of your cold outreach. Like, how have you set up your systems and your marketing channels in a way so that you can book so many shows so fast?
Well, I'll start off with this, that for every Teddy Rose show that you see that's happening, there's probably 8 to 15 people that either A, didn't respond, told us no, or we're still trying to, figure out a date with. So it's not like, we email 30 venues or clubs or promoters or college event organizers or fraternities, and they're all saying, yes, we want Teddy Rose. You're exactly what we're looking for. I would say one of every 8 or 10 actually, respond right away. And almost never do we get the booking off of that first time or that first correspondence. Like, we have to follow up. And there have been times where we followed up 4 times and we're like, man, should we just give up with this one? We're like, no, let's send it a 5th email. And they'll be like, boom, are you available this Saturday in 6 weeks? And we're like, yes, let's go. And it was just like that last push of follow-up is what got me into a market I've been trying to get in for the last year. So you just have to be okay with being told no. It's not that you're not good enough or you're not ready for the opportunity. It's just that people don't know about you yet, and you have to get your name out somehow. And if you're not going to promote your name by massive reach out, then no one else is going to.
Yeah. And if nobody knows your name or nobody knows your product or service, it doesn't matter how good it is. Doesn't matter how good you are at music. Doesn't matter how good your course is. If nobody knows about it, you're not going to make any money. And that's the name of the game. Of course, we want to be happy. We want to live epic lifestyles. But if we don't have the money and the income streams coming in, we don't have shit. And so tell me, like, I'm really curious about this, because I see you're a friend of mine, but I also see on Instagram 4:30 a.m. at the gym. I see and I hear about the books that you're reading. I hear about how you're sending hundreds of emails a day. I hear about how your manager Dave is doing cold outreach and you're always traveling. Like, how does Teddy Rose spend his day? How do you stay so productive with such a crazy schedule?
I'll just start off by saying that the morning is the most important part of the day for me. Getting up, hydrating, get a good healthy meal in me, hit the gym, even if it's only for, 20 to 40 minutes. Like, get out there, get a sweat going, get some blood out of your head, and, release some anxiety and stress. Get working on something creative, whether it's edits for a show, working on a remix. Now at this point, working on lyrics for originals, listening to some different vocalists that, might be a good fit for upcoming singles. That's kind of the morning, hour and a half to 4 hours at a time. And then once I realize that I'm not being productive anymore, I cut it and move on to something else that is going to create opportunities, or work on something like reach out for an upcoming show to promote it or something like that in the afternoon. And that's kind of the basic routine. But it really starts in the morning, where, at least for me, knock out a workout in the morning, and no matter what happens, the day is already productive. The rest of the day could go to crap. Something happens, you have to go help somebody with something, or something happens. And no matter what, you hit a workout in the morning, you're feeling good about that. And it's not hanging over your head while you're working on music or working on something for your business. It's just like, I already got that done today. I don't have to think about that again, till tomorrow.
So you really structure in a way of like personal growth first, and then in the mornings while your creative juices are flowing, that's when you're really working on music. I would imagine a lot of people in your industry are night owls that stay up late and sleep in late. And it's pretty cool to know that you've kind of taken it from a more success-driven mindset of like getting up early, personal growth, and then creating music while most of your peers are probably still asleep. And then once they are awake, once club owners are awake, that's when you're really focusing on the outreach, the marketing. So that's pretty special, man. Tell me this. What's like the biggest mistake that you think you've made that you've learned the most from in the last couple of years? Doesn't have to be something that affected your pockets or your business, but just something that you've made a mistake on that you think others could relate to, so that they could try to avoid it.
I won't say what city or, what show it was, but there was a show that I committed to playing, went and played the show, got to the venue, and pretty much everything was messed up. They didn't have the equipment right. No one came to the show. The promoter basically like mailed it in, didn't put any time into making sure that it was going to be a good event. And it was really just like a waste of time. That taught me to really, well, Dave and I, like our team, like every single show where I'm flying across the country, putting a whole day and night and then another travel day back into something, everything has to be dialed in. Like we've learned, hey, let's have a standard sound check sheet. Who's going to be at the sound check? What equipment's going to be there? What time is it going to be? Okay, like you're going to promote the event. How many times are you going to post? How frequent are you going to post? Who is the target audience? And kind of actually track those ticket sales, and not just blindly commit to opportunities just because it's a new opportunity, but then also keep that person on the other side accountable to make sure it's actually worth your time.
I love that, man. So it sounds like you have taken that, not even necessarily your mistake, but it's cool that you've taken ownership of somebody else's mistake so that it doesn't happen to you again, because it was such a big time waste. And it sounds like you've created systems where you're going to be doing the same thing repeatedly, weekend after weekend, day after day throughout the years. And so now you've put systems in place with your team, sound check sheets. I would imagine there's certain things that you guys have to check off so that it's appropriate. How many times are you going to post? How many marketing channels are you going to promote on? What's the target audience? Who's coming to the show, so that you can get a good idea of what to play for them. You've built these systems instead of just showing up and freaking winging it. And I think that's really, really cool that you took that and spun it into a positive, so that later on down the road, you don't fall into that, or there's a very low chance of falling into that again, because you've created such great systems. So that kind of leads me into the next thing. I like to talk about the zone of genius, because I truly feel that if we as business owners, want to live incredible lifestyles and really have a life that's like worth going after and grinding on, we must constantly stay within our zone of genius and leverage out everything else. Because if we get caught doing the low dollar per hour work or the stuff that we hate doing, it's going to slow down our business. It's going to cause us to not be happy. So we must stay in our zone of genius. So what is that for you? What is that area in your business that if you spent all day, every day on, you'd be thrilled about it, your business would grow rapidly, it just makes sense and it's right for you?
I would say that there's three parts to it that I really enjoy. Obviously, working on music, working on remixes, making mashups for the shows. Those are my favorite things to do. I wish I had more time to listen to new music and just block out time to listen to new stuff on Spotify, listen to what everybody else is listening to. But really, for me, it would just be completely working on music the entire day. But right now, I won't even complain with how my daily routine is going, because I think breaking it up to where I'm not working on music for 10 or 12 hours a day actually keeps it more fresh and less monotonous and less like a job. One thing that I really wish I had more time for, or more opportunities, is to interact more with my fans on social media. Like, I get messages and DMs at least like 20 a day, like, hey, come here, like, I really like this remix. Like, I respond to all of them that I can, and I wish I could carry out more in-depth conversations. And I think with the way social media is right now, everybody wants that personal connection and feel like they actually know somebody. And I feel like I'm not able to provide that, where a lot of people take it the wrong way when I don't message back at some point, because it kind of gets to the point to where it's impossible to, do everything that I'm doing and also reply to all the messages, even though I try my best to.
Totally, man. And so that zone of genius, the music, creativity, engaging with your fans on social media, those are really the things that are going to move the needle and really provide a pathway forward for your business. So how have you like honed in on that and leveraged out the monotonous things that don't require such a special skill set to do?
Well, I have a few people on my team that help, with graphics and our promotion, reach out for events, things like that. Then Dave and I both kind of collaborate on, this is what we're doing now. What is this going to provide for us 3 months from now, 6 months from now? Okay, this is the type of tour we're trying to do in 3 months. What type of tour should we be trying to do in 9 months? Are we targeting this part of the country? Are we going for this part of the world? For a weekend at a time, or a day at a time, 3 to 4 hours at a time, I'd be working on music, looking for new tracks to play, making mashups, working on music, reaching out to artists, things like that. And I would come back and, Dave, my manager, would be like, hey, spoke to this venue, spoke to this guy, like, they want to have you this day, but we're already booked, or whatever, things like that. Like, he is working on a lot of that correspondence while I'm working on the music. But we also collaborate a lot on that reach out, so that we're on the same page on, what type of voice we're trying to put Teddy Rose in, and make sure people have an like accurate idea of where I'm at in my career and what I've done so far and what's coming next, based off of how we feel at that time, what I'm working on, and how our trajectory and momentum feels.
Gotcha. Very cool. So one thing that is super cool with you is like the amount of engagement. I just want to talk about like something more tactical and technical here, and specifically to do with your Instagram. I think that the way that you run your Instagram, a lot of business owners that are looking to get growth on Instagram could really model after. So what do you think are some of like the tactical secrets to your success and your engagement and following on Instagram? And how do you maintain that? How do you work on that? How did you come up with that? Let's talk about like the architect side of how you run your social media.
I like every post to be different and unique, even more so now than even a year ago, where it shows a different side of me. I'm in a different location. I'm doing different things. I want to be relatable, but also be myself, and, give people an opportunity to, comment something that they feel like is related to that post, or something funny, or just kind of like keep it fresh and not post like 6 photos all at the same spot, but just different angles, and you're wearing the same outfit. Like, nobody really wants to see that. When it comes to Instagram, if people are commenting, you need to reply to every single one, because they're either trying to get your attention or interact with you in some way. And that's an opportunity for you to build a fan base. And, people are going to probably, mention like, hey, like Teddy Rose, like hit me back on Instagram. Like, let's check out his music, or yeah, it seems like a pretty good guy. Like he's taking the time to DM me back or things like that. It kind of makes people want to be more involved and, just not being one sided where you're just posting and not replying back. I think that's definitely huge.
So engagement is definitely key. Replying to your fans, building that familiarity. And you made a good point about enticing them or leaving a post in a way so that it has them comment. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, how do you structure your captions to get the amount of engagement that you do?
Sometimes I ask a question and then I don't know. I feel like I try and match what I was feeling in that moment with the caption, but kind of twist it in a way that people can relate to it. Or if it's simple as like, it's like a family photo from a show and there's a ton of people with their hands up and like veins popping out of their neck, like looking like they're going crazy. I just, keep it simple. Like last night was just recently, it was like first show in Canada was insane, or it was like a party or something. And a lot of people were commenting on that because they could just see the emotion in my face and everyone in that room. They're like, damn, like everyone is so happy at that moment in time. So in that case, I keep it pretty simple with the caption because the photo kind of speaks for itself. It just has to be, you. Like it can be a song lyric that you like, or an idea that you have and you just kind of want to throw it out there.
All right, let's talk about some of the people, entrepreneurs that you might admire, not just DJs, but where you might find motivation, where you might find tactics and systems to follow. They might have written books or they might have podcasts. Where do you look to for knowledge? Where do you look to for motivation?
Mostly books. I think that in order to stay positive and sane in anything, but especially in music or entertainment, you need to have that positive reinforcement every day. People use the term like self-help books, but I honestly hate that term because it makes it sound like you have something wrong, like there's something wrong with you, but really you're just reinforcing that hope of reaching that next step or that goal that you want by reading every day. I don't listen to podcasts too much, but I would say, reading books every day, that's kind of the main tool.
So how much do you read daily?
I like to read at least, like 10 pages in a given day, but some days I'll, plow through like half a book. So it could be like 100 pages or 150 pages in one day, depending on how I'm feeling. If I feel like I need a little bit extra or like an escape from the monotonous routine.
Okay. And what is the most impactful book you've ever read?
I think it's Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone.
It's a great book. Another book that we've talked about a lot in the past is 10X and by Grant Cardone. And I think those two books do a great job of showcasing that as business owners, we have to be obsessed or we'll just be average. And we really have to take what we think is normal, take what we think is needed, and put that on a 10X scale and build our systems, our people, our output in a way that it is 10X if we want those 10X results. What is the best book that you've read recently? Or let me ask you this. What are you reading right now?
I just finished reading The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma, and I'm going back through and reading it again to make sure, not the whole thing, but things that I highlighted. And there are a lot of models and schedule models and tactics that come from that. And I just want to make sure I, grasped all of them and I'm writing notes on the book rather than just reading the book and putting it up on the shelf forever.
Got it. So you have a sort of system behind how you read books?
Absolutely.
Tell me about it.
It used to be I would highlight things that, sparked my interest or an idea that motivated me. And after I read that book, I would write every single line out and put it in the same notebook. And I would have every single line of every book that I read, all the highlighted sections, all in one notebook, to where I could go back and just read through and just get spark a small piece of motivation or, review quickly. I don't do it as in depth as that anymore. Now I just kind of go back and highlight, and I'll pick like, okay, out of these, 10 or 20 things I highlighted, like this one really, strikes a chord with me. And I think I can like think about this more and figure out what that really means and how I can apply it to my life and my daily routine.
So it's almost like you were building like spark notes or summaries for these books so that you could go back and look at them. I would imagine, like, have you ever taken a look back at that notebook from a few years ago and seen like what your mindset was, like what you might have taken away from certain books at that point that are just drilled into your brain now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those Grant Cardone books, I mean, those were a big part of that notebook. To be completely honest, I pretty sure I lost it traveling. And that's kind of part of the reason that I don't do that anymore. But really the reason that I do it is I write everything down. If I wrote an email to somebody, I write the date, what time I've sent the email, and I go back and track like when I sent that email. So for me, like writing something down helps me remember it. So that's why I would go back and write notes on the books that I was reading, or even like a certain idea that I have for a song, or a song I want to remix, or like a mashup I want to make. Like if it's just like a quick idea, I write it down and I write the date, and that helps me just remember everything. I have like, it's stupid how many legal pads I have stacked up with just random notes in my house, or in my room actually. But
That's awesome, man. Very cool. So I want to ask you something. You said that you're going back through 5 a.m. Club again, that book. What are some of those schedule routines or tactics that you've pulled from that book that you're looking to apply right away? I'm really curious about that.
in that book, it talks about a 20-20-20 rule, where the first 20 minutes of your day are spent doing vigorous physical activity, like a cardio or a CrossFit type workout, where you're just getting the blood going. And then you go immediately into like a reflection or meditation or journaling, something like that, for 20 minutes. And then 20 minutes of personal development, where it's listening to a podcast, reading a new book, reflecting on an old book, something like that. And that's how 5 a.m. Club, that's how they model. That's how Robin Sharma, I guess, models, his day. I personally like to, hit a little bit longer workout in the morning, but I want to really start diving into that time of reflection or appreciation for what I have and where I've come from, and kind of putting a pause between the workout and going right into working, to where I can kind of get a little bit more grounded and reduce stress. I think that's the biggest thing that I've pulled, is prioritizing that a chunk of the morning to reflect, to take a deep breath and just think about, the big picture, what's deep in my mind, what are some things that I'm not thinking about on a daily basis that I should be thinking about.
Very cool. So they wake up at 5, and for that first hour, it's 20-20-20, or they wake up at 4 and they're done with that hour by 5?
They wake up at 5.
Got it. So they wake up at 5, 20 minutes of rigorous activity, 20 minutes of journaling or reflecting, and then 20 minutes of self-development of either listening or reading.
Yes.
Very cool. Got it. Note taken. So you said that has really helped you with where you come from and what you have, and being grateful for that. Tell me this, where are you going? What is going to happen over the next 5 years? If Teddy Rose 5 years from now, 2024, if he's like, man, and he looks back and he thinks that the 5 years were such a success, and where he's at right now, he's on top of the world. What does that look like? Where are you going?
By that point, hopefully a few albums that people know, the words to my songs, my original songs, and collaborate with some really big artists, and, having some pretty good slots on big festivals, playing all over the world. And yeah, just have a community of fans and that kind of understand the Teddy Rose experience, and understand that it's different from any other performer or DJ.
Awesome, man. So for the listeners, what is, if the listeners are thinking to themselves that they're creative and they really want to step in that creative role, but they need help with the business side of things, they need help with the structure, the discipline, the systems. That's where I think you really separate yourself from the pack of creatives. Is you're very structured, system oriented and goal minded. What is like an actionable tip that they could take right now to further step into that realm?
Straight up, you cannot party as much as you want to, and you can't be out on the weekends like everyone else in the nightlife industry is. I would say that I mean, I'm not going to tell anybody how to live their life, but maybe going to every single music festival and spending hundreds of bucks on everyone that you have access to isn't the best idea in terms of time spent or money spent, where you could invest that back into your brand or save that up for some sort of equipment that you can put towards for producing or buying DJ equipment so you can practice whenever you want and not be reliant on renting out equipment or someone else. Really, I would say until you get to a point that you want to be, you simply just have to put in more time than other people are. And that means the weekends, sometimes holidays, and not taking every opportunity that you get to, spend time with friends and family. Like, you simply just have to sacrifice some time. And I mean, this, like, I've gone through certain seasons where I'm not really out at all. Like, you have no idea, like, what is this guy doing? Like, just working on music constantly. Like, I mean, you kind of have to go off the grid at sometimes and completely focus on you.
So stop partying, read some damn books, wake up earlier, build a morning routine to get your day started, and work harder. You don't have to slave 7 days a week, 20 hours a day, but start replacing some of the wasted time with disciplined, focused work. And would you agree that that is a good start for somebody that's listening right now, that's thinking to themselves that they might be stuck or they don't quite know how to take the next step?
I think that's a really good start. And a quick add-on would be create your own opportunities. Like, there will be people that come along that you'll add to your team that will help and, have different perspectives and tools and, maybe connections that can get you to another point. But until you get to that point to where you have a team helping you out, like, you just have to go out there and create your own opportunities. Like, tell people you want to play at their club, hit up artists that you want to collaborate with, and keep hitting them up until they respond to you and say, hey, we love to work with you, but not yet. Or, hey, we're not interested. Okay, on to the next one. It's no big deal. You're just one step closer to that one opportunity that's going to get you to, the next step and get you off of that plateau that you're currently on.
Got it. So I love that. Create your own opportunities and don't get discouraged by being told no, because you're that much closer to a yes. Very cool. All right, Mr. Teddy Rose, where can people find you if they're not already following you on social media?
Teddy Rose on Instagram, Teddy with 2 Y's, Rose, TEDDYYROSE, and Teddy Rose on Spotify, Apple Music, and SoundCloud.
Got it. And if somebody wants to know about your show schedule, if they want to check you out, they want to see if you're coming to perform in their city or a city near them,
go on Songkick and search Teddy Rose. And if you hit track, you'll get an automatic notification for any Teddy Rose shows within a certain radius near your city.
Cool. And we'll put all those social tags and SoundCloud, where you can find his music, on Spotify, and where you can find his show schedule. We'll put all those in the show notes. So check that out. Bro, I appreciate your time, man. I think you dropped some serious knowledge, and there's a lot of creatives out there that are going to get their shit together and start reading some books and get disciplined and not get discouraged when they're using cold outreach to get their message across, because eventually they will get a yes and they'll think about your show and how you impacted them. So very cool, Teddy. I appreciate your time, man.
Thank you for having me. This was a great time.
Thanks for listening to Life Worth Chasing with me, your host, Chase Maher. If you like the show, smash that subscribe button, leave me a rate and review. You know what? Screenshot the show, share it on Instagram, tag me at I am Chase Maher, and I'll repost it. There's hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and you've made the decision to listen to mine, which is so cool. I'll see you on the next show.